Before we get into it, I would like to begin by acknowledging that DeepSense works out of Mi'kmaqi, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship. Um, and Now we're going to start the workshop. Welcome to our resume revamp workshop. Creating the perfect resume is a vital component of your job hunting efforts and a key element of the STEM Connector program. This workshop, which is led by program manager at DeepSense, Alex Pottier, is tailored to help you craft a standard resume that effectively showcases your skills, experiences, and achievements to potential employers in the STEM industry. Just to give you guys a little overview of STEM Connector, it is a career development program that has been designed for post-secondary STEM students to help develop skills that will be crucial in your job search after graduation. This initiative is a collaboration between DeepSense and Shiftkeys Labs, and its primary aim is to equip students with skills and knowledge that will help prepare them better for a job post graduation. Through STEM connectors, students can enhance essential career skills such as collaboration, time management, and professionalism. The program also offers various workshops and activities such as public speaking workshops, resume revamp workshops, LinkedIn profile photo events, and so many more to boost students' confidence and communication. Now we're just going to have Alyssa, who is also the communication specialist at DeepSense, give a brief introduction about what we do here at DeepSense.
Thanks, Agastya. Yeah, STEM Connector is run by DeepSense and Shiftkeys, and DeepSense is a project based out of Dalhousie University in Halifax, but we work with universities and colleges across Atlantic Canada. We work with companies in the ocean sector who are interested in harnessing the potential of data and creating a smarter ocean economy. And we connect these companies with the next generation of AI, machine learning, and data experts, aka you students. We work with companies to create a project that best suits their needs, and then we find a researcher and a student to help execute the project. We've had past projects in data analytics, data collection, data visualizations, data cleaning and processing, and of course, AI and machine learning. The projects could be anything from creating a deep learning model to track fish or creating a prediction model for safe navigation in the Halifax Harbor. And if this sounds interesting to you, then make sure you submit your information to our student pool. I'll drop a couple links in the chat in just a moment, but that's all from me. Thanks, Agastya.
Thanks, Alyssa. Now next we have Toby, who is like a liaison from Shiftkeys Labs, just to give like a brief introduction about what they do over there.
Yeah, sure. So basically, Shiftkeys Labs is a Nova Scotia tech sandbox. Our main goal is to help students to basically bridge the gap from what they learn in class to what employers expect. So we host things like workshops, info sessions, hackathons. If you're a student at Dow, you've probably heard of some of our things. We also do have Shiftkeys Academy, which is basically meant to help upskill. So we do have certificate reimbursements up to $150 for each certification you try to take. And basically, yeah, Shiftkeys is always trying to help students out. So definitely reach out if you have any questions. Some of our workshops will definitely help you gain skills that you can put on your resume. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toby. Now finally, a little bit background information about today's presenter, Alex. Alex is originally from the village of Tuscott, Nova Scotia, and graduated in 2020 from Dalhousie University with a bachelor's in industrial engineering. After spending time working in defense, he moved to DeepSense to work as a program manager. For the past year and a bit, he has been helping Canadian companies in the ocean sector leverage the data to create machine learning solutions while providing Atlantic Canada post-secondary students with industry experience. Over to you, Alex.
Sweet, well said. Let me share my screen now. Cool, it appears that I am screen sharing. Welcome to my resume workshop. I can personally guarantee all of you will get the ideal job that you've always wanted immediately after this. Okay, so a little bit about me. I guess I kind of covered most of it, but a few extra details. This is a photo of me. I'm a program manager. I have looked at over 500 resumes, so I am pretty good at ascertaining what's a good resume. Also, I am 177 centimeters tall. So let's talk about resumes. So to start off, I kind of have a bunch of general pointers, and then after that, I'll kind of get into more detail on actual resumes themselves and like common practice and common techniques to kind of make it look really good. So starting off, probably would recommend no more than 2 pages. Like people that look at resumes will look at that and kind of be intimidated, but also be like, why is this person wasting my time? So kind of try to keep it a bit more concise. You could do a 1-pager. I think if you're looking kind of more to a technical role, though, there's kind of enough to put on 2 pages and you don't really want to skim on some information. So continuing on, don't include a summary or bio in your resume. That's good for CVs, but the amount of space that you're allotted really in a resume, it's going to take up a lot of space where you could be actually communicating more about your skills on like a more technical level. And then also it's such limited space really in your resume that it will probably sound like a little generic, or you won't be able to like properly convey what you're trying to say. Make sure to include academic experience in it. I assume a lot of you are either recent grads or you're looking for co-ops. So kind of talk about your experience relevant to the kind of jobs that you're looking for, talking about them as if they're actual work experience, like pretty valuable, pretty self-explanatory there. Next, always good to include personal projects. That shows that you have a lot of initiative outside of like work and you're actually personally interested in the kind of stuff that you're looking at. It's good to play with formatting a little bit, bolding some stuff. I probably wouldn't italicize, but keeping it kind of light on the emphasis so that it's not just completely emphasized everything. Make sure to, when you're actually talking about your experience, elaborate quite a bit. We'll kind of go over more of that later on in this as well. A good tip for formatting is organize everything basically in tables, and then after you click on the table and turn all of the lines white, that way you can just make sure that all your space is used most effectively. And distinguish the space, so you don't want it all jumbled up in one big cloud of words. You want to really separate all of the different sections of your resume. And finally, tailor to the audience. I know this one's super annoying. Like you don't want to have to make a resume for every single job you're applying to, but really kind of have all of your information in one area and then make it so that you can easily just pick from that to make a nice resume. Yeah, you really don't want stuff that's irrelevant to the job, and you have probably different experiences that are applied to different jobs differently. So now I'm going to go into how to build a good resume. I have looked through all the resumes and I kind of picked and chose my favorite parts of them. I anonymized them, kind of create like one super resume. These are all the resume examples are also on the website, and I'll show you that later as well. But yeah, and don't fret, you will not forget everything that you saw today. So to start off, self-explanatory header, kind of give us your info. Don't include your address, but you can definitely show us where you're based out of. That's some people, if they don't know where you're based and the job is not remote on site, they may like overlook your resume because that's important to them. Following that, got a skills section. This is a format that I like. You can do it differently really, but as long as you highlight kind of all the different competencies you have in terms of like languages, frameworks, etc. really. Grouping them up also into categories is a good way to kind of get a lot in there. Following that, it's kind of a good example of what work experience can look like. This one is kind of is a lot of text. I wouldn't put more than this, but this is an example from a template resume that has less experience, so more elaboration on the experience versus more different experiences with less text. So here you can see different examples of bolding and other formatting things that I mentioned, but start with the most recent, obviously, and then we want to know like the title of your position, the name of the company, the location, and the dates that you work there. And make sure to use concise language. So talk about your tasks and your achievements, and you want to contextualize that. So for an experience, think of what you would ask somebody to know exactly what they did for their job. Just every time you list off an experience, ask yourself further and further questions to really drill down. So you want to make it very specific and convey what you did best and like market yourself. Okay, so following that, here is kind of similar section, but just about projects. Whereas your new grads are in school, you probably will have a larger project section and experience section that's relevant at least. So following a lot of the same guidelines as I mentioned before, really, bolding your stuff, but talk about it as if it is work experience. Ask yourselves the same questions. And if you have a GitHub link, definitely include that, embed that as a hyperlink. Also, often I've seen this a lot, people from the same program will have a lot of the same experience, the same project experience. I don't know how many times I've read the project Trivia Titans. I forgot what class that's in, but I mean, great project and a great experience, but you won't differentiate yourself that much from people in your same program. So here's a good place to be putting personal projects as well. Let me mention that it's a personal project to show that you have initiative. So like come up with your own concept, find your own data, figure out your own solution. I know that can be hard with school. School's kind of tough, but yeah, this will make you stand out from your peers for sure. So following this, I have kind of a before and after of some experiences to give you kind of an idea of maybe if you're lacking some information. So here are some questions that you should be asking yourself when you're writing down your experience. What'd you do? How'd you do it? Why'd you do it? What was the outcome? That should cover most things that employers would be asking. So here is kind of a before example. Here, you just implemented CI/CD pipelines. Okay, that's cool. Anyone could do that. I can't do that, but after enhancing it with these frameworks, technology, why do I do it? To automate building and testing and deploying. It's another example. Before, participated in the development of an e-commerce website using React. Okay, that's cool. Anyone can do that. What about how to enhance that? Look at all that. Bolded the React and then bolded some metrics as well, kind of really helping to contextualize what your experience was. So yeah, if you're improving something or you can tie numbers to anything, that will look really good on your resume, and like people will look at that first almost, and it's a good proof that you've actually been useful. Another section, your education section. Do you put it before or after your work experience? It kind of depends on what you're trying to communicate. So do you want people that are hiring to know that immediately? Maybe. If you are kind of looking for a co-op position or specifically, explicitly like a recent grad position, sure, put that like before your work experience. Don't make it bigger than that, I guess, really. Like even shorter than that is cool. You don't have to go into detail. I probably wouldn't do anything other than kind of relevant coursework to really, so people kind of know your degree better or kind of what stream of that you were going in. And if it is less important, you put it at the end, I guess. Like that's where I'm at after graduating in 2020. Education is not super important for the kind of jobs that I'm applying for, but yeah, keeping it at the end for sure. It's not useless. And then finally, as kind of a footnote, certifications or publications that you've done are good to put at the end. This is kind of more focused to industry type resumes. For an academic, like research kind of position, you know, that would be a much larger section, and you also have your CV, so can't really speak to that too much because I have not really encountered that a whole lot. So here I have kind of a good example I'm going to pull up of one of the template resumes, just kind of give you an overview of the format, how it all looks together. I made that in Paint if you're wondering. So yeah, here is one of the templates. I think it's this one or the other one that I was kind of ripping for this PowerPoint, but kind of education section at the top there. Got some nice formatting, got a skill section. This, I tried to make 2 different template resumes because I see a lot of variance and a lot of different techniques and formatting people are doing, but you can see there like a skills section, and then you got your work experience there, kind of bolding methodologies and techniques that you've used. This is a 2-pager, and then here are a few projects that someone did, and then certifications at the end. Yeah, see, not too big, but like easy to read because of the formatting and everything. So the people can more efficiently kind of gauge what your skills are and your competency for the job, but also like best communicate what you have to offer the best. And then I have a bad example we can look at. Oh my goodness, I can't. The toolbar for my screen share is hiding this. Okay. So I have a bad resume here and some tips. This will cover a lot of stuff that I also see a lot of actually, and kind of the reason why we decided to do this. Goodness. Okay, cool. So here's Meme Guy. This is Meme Guy's resume. It's not very good. This is not going to get anybody a job. So first thing to note here really is don't include a headshot. It's not really convention in Canada anyway for tech jobs. It'll seem bizarre to a hiring manager. And here again, like don't include an intro paragraph. It's like any personal message to a hiring manager should be in the cover letter, really. Like I was saying earlier, like the amount of space that is dedicated to this in a resume is not very efficient. It's not good enough to convey your information, and it takes up space from saying other things. This is another thing I find bizarre, is having this kind of format for a skill section. Do not add point values. This is not your Dungeons and Dragons character sheet, especially actually seeing some people putting their own self-rated skills, which are low, in the skill section. Like if it's 2 out of 5, don't put that there. In your actual resume, you have some experience with it, this kind of stuff. Definitely do include it, sure, but without a point value, it's a lot better. It'll look a lot better. Education section, don't forget to include your degree name. I saw one just yesterday without a degree name. It's just kind of confusing. You don't really know where somebody's coming from. And then don't elaborate on it in text like I was showing here, like other than relevant coursework. There might be some circumstances where you do want to elaborate, but in general, it's not necessary at all. And here, just kind of like, you really have to elaborate a lot more on this kind of stuff using more frameworks, but more like the goals, using the questions that I was mentioning earlier, like what did you do? Why did you do it? What was the outcome? Who did you do it for? Those kinds of things. Also, this is like really poorly formatted because all this information could easily fit on one page. So like make sure you're using it super efficiently and like don't waste space for sure. So that is those 2 examples. I won't, the bad resume example is not going to be on our website. It's kind of pointless, but the good ones are. So that was the good example, and I showed you the bad examples. So here's where you can find our resume templates under Work With Us, under Students on the deepsense.ca website. They're both there in PDF, I think, but I might put them in as Word documents as well, so you can see the table formatting and everything. So that concludes my resume workshop. I think that if you have any like further questions on resumes, or you want, if you're in here, if you'd like me to review your resume, feel free to send it to the DeepSense email. I'd be happy to give it a quick look through and figure out any pointers I have, because a lot of people are very capable, but sometimes the resume is kind of a crutch and doesn't properly convey how capable you are. And I would like to see you succeed. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was a great presentation. Absolutely loved the intro. We're gonna open the floor to like the chat section. If you have like any questions or if you would like to speak into the mic, feel free. I have a question. Just you mentioned not including the headshots in your resume. Are there like any other absolutely don'ts that you think is like an instant red flag, or the the hiring manager would just like chuck the resume into the bin?
The biggest red flags, other than headshots, they're not that bad. Like an intro paragraph, I just think it's not helping in any way. I'm not going to throw a resume out because of an intro. And the skill section, I guess if I'm looking for specific skills and you do include like point values and the point values of the skills that I'm looking for are low, then that's not going to help you either.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have a question from Sophie. Would you recommend putting awards under education or certifications?
I guess education depends on how many awards I guess you have. Yeah, I guess I'd probably put it under education just because you'll probably see that before certifications or publications, but I don't think that one is that big of a deal where it goes, in my opinion.
We have another question. When tailoring, would it be useful to bold the skills that the job description is looking for, or would that be too much?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Like generally, like any kind of, you can do either approach, I guess, like bolding just general skills and frameworks and whatever, but the specific ones for the job, that sounds like a great idea.
We have another question from Ashish. Can academic team projects be considered as experience?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Like having that in your product section, I guess, but like specifically talking about your contribution. I think very often when you see that kind of stuff, like team projects, some people are pretty general with it, with the kind of angle of like the entire project is cool and impressive, and I will just put just the whole thing. But then when it gets down to actually interviewing and people asking questions about it, sometimes people are like, oh, actually, I just did this section of it. I didn't do all that you're really interested in. So there's a degree of like, not misleading, but kind of making your experience look really good and kind of enhancing it, I guess you could say. But in that case with a team project, like definitely highlight your contributions and talk about that specifically as best you can.
We have a question from Rachel. Would you advise against adding high school information to a resume under the education section, especially for a first year uni student who hasn't spent much time in post-secondary?
Oh yeah, definitely include that as well. I remember like also for my first co-op, like all my experience was so minimal, like definitely including that. Yeah, any relevant experience, like is good. If it's not really saying much, I guess, not worth including it. But if you participate in any clubs or any kind of volunteer activity, yeah, I think that could look good.
I have another question. While talking about the education section, how important do you think it is to add your GPA?
I don't think it's important, really. I sure like a 4.3 looks really cool and is really impressive, but there's a lot of stuff that I guess doesn't quite transfer between like the educational academic world and the real world. Depends on the job, I guess, and context, but if it's not there, I'm not gonna bat an eye. Like I don't really care at all personally. Yeah, it depends on the job, I guess.
Thank you. We have a question from Alyssa. How does the use of AI to review resume change some of the formatting/tips that you shared?
Ooh, I don't use anything like that. Like for us, with the people submitting into our student pool, we kind of have some details in tabular format, and then we kind of look at that real quick, and then we pull up the resumes. So we use it kind of like to filter a tiny bit, but we're not using AI or anything to look through all the resumes and tell us anything. Think like I'd be afraid of hallucinations, like misrepresenting students. Yeah, the only thing I can speak to that, I guess, is I saw some people include a lot of keywords in white text in their resume, which would get picked up by any kind of algorithm, but not by a person. I don't know if I advise for or against that. I just thought it was kind of funny, but yeah, I don't really know, unfortunately, about that. Just try to keep the human element in it, you know?
The floor is still open, or if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question, it's also possible.
Yeah, I had one question.
Cool. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so my question was, it's like that, like people like me who don't have any work experience, it's suggested for them to keep the length of the resume to be of 1 page. But what if my content doesn't fit? So what shall I do? Shall I exceed the page limit or shall I reduce the font size?
Yeah, I guess you can do both for sure. I think that the font size of 12 or 11, whatever the default is definitely could be smaller for sure. Like I wouldn't try to keep it like that large. But unless it's like a very hard restriction of 1 page, uh, 2 pages is expected, really, at least in my experience. I pretty much always expect and read through 2 pages. Um, Going over 2 is kind of annoying and a bit too much, but 2 is totally a normal amount to most people, I would imagine.
Okay, so when I had created a rough kind of resume for me, so the page is somewhat of 1.5. So that isn't looking that great. Means either I should have 1 or 2. Is it fine to have it of 1.5 page?
Oh yeah, for sure. You don't have to fill the second page at all. Like anything that's extra on the first page can go on the second, even if it's just like a paragraph or anything. Yeah, I don't think that's annoying, really.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
I sort of have like a follow-up on that for university students who are like in their first year or the second year, and they've maybe worked on like a few academic projects, like writing a paper. Would you consider that an important sort of an important addition to the resume? Say for if for instance someone wrote an academic paper or like a review paper, like a scientific paper, but it's like obviously not published because of like a university student. Would you still recommend they do that?
Yeah, I think that's good, especially if you're trying to add as much experience as you can, I guess, to your resume when you're lacking it. Just talk about it in a way that makes it sound impressive. Like I know for us, a lot of our students at the end have to write a report on their project, so that demonstrates that. Just talk about it as if it's a job, like kind of why you did it and what you did it for, what you're trying to communicate, how you're trying to communicate it, kind of who the audience was for that. Yeah, I think you can really speak about something in a way to put it on a resume like pretty easily, I guess. It's just like, is it relevant or not? Yeah, I guess so. I think, yeah, writing reports is good.
Thank you. We have another question from Alyssa. Oh, this is a really good one. How can people with more experience condense their resumes without losing important details?
That's yeah, that's really tough. That's why I suspect a lot of people are fearful of when they have like 3 pages. That just comes with practice, and kind of picking what the most important parts of your experience are to keep there, knowing that like it's interesting and good and well written enough such that you're able to talk about the rest of the stuff in person. Um, for some things like tech related projects, including a GitHub link, might help a little bit, removing some details from it. But other kinds of experience, yeah, it's definitely tough. Just like prioritize what you think the audience is going to want to know the most. Don't don't repeat yourself, and yeah, and the rest hopefully you'll get to speak about in person.
Thank you. We have another question. May I ask, as a student, what kind of projects or experiences does HR think are the most attractive?
Okay, yeah, for that I can only speak to specifically DeepSense kind of AI data projects. But I things that have kind of the whole pipeline involved are really good, from data collection to data and exploratory data analysis, engineering, cleaning, and then all the way to modeling and model evaluation. If you have that whole pipeline and you're looking to specifically do AI projects, I think that's an easy one to also do as personal projects. But just showing you understand every component in the general pipeline is really good. And specifically, I also recommend a lot for students to get experience in kind of all the major types of data or AI projects. So I know sometimes we get waves of students with only computer vision experience, because it's pretty hot in AI. But that only conveys so much if you're kind of going for more numerical analysis kind of jobs, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So kind of doing a project also with numerical tabular data is really good. Maybe doing stuff with language models if you're interested in that, but just making sure, yes, you're not a one-trick pony, to kind of cover all your grounds, and also showing like there's a lot of information and skills that have overlap between all the techniques. So if you're well-rounded, one thing kind of also tells you that you're competent in the other thing if that other experience is present. And yeah, I think that kind of covers that. But from my point of view anyway.
That was great. Thank you so much. We have another question from Sophie. How do you recommend getting feedback on your resume?
I think just giving it to professionals that are a bit higher up in a company, almost like not someone that's, I mean, depends on who you have access to, I guess, but definitely getting professionals to review them, professionals that are where you want to be. And I think if it's somebody that their job is not 100% to review resumes all day and they hate doing that, someone that just like has like a normal kind of task kind of schedule, I think most people would be willing to take the time, like 5-10 minutes even, or something around that, to look over your resume and help you out. Yeah, I don't mind doing that. It's like it'll help pretty quickly. You can ascertain what's good and what's bad if it's kind of glaring in any way. But yeah, definitely asking people to help.
Thank you. I have another question. How important do you think are aesthetics when creating your resume? Do employers are like they really picky and choosy about the color, formatting, everything, or is it just like
Oh, yeah.
straightforward?
I think in terms of aesthetics, there's like different points of view, I guess you can have. But if somebody is super focused on aesthetics and they don't have like a graphic design degree, it'll probably just look messy and cluttered almost. Like in terms of color, like maybe have like an accent color if you want to do that, like on your headers or something. I probably wouldn't put any graphics in your resume unless you are looking for a graphic design job, I guess. But keeping it super simple and minimal is the best. But the most important part is that it's just organized. and all your different sections are easily picked out, and that your information is conveyed very effectively.
That's amazing. Thank you. If there's any more questions, now would be the time to ask them. I think we've got like a lot of questions, and I think all of them have been answered. And I don't see any more questions in the chat. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all of these valuable tips. And also thank you to everyone for joining this workshop. We hope you learned valuable feedback that you can apply to your resume. Make sure that you follow us on our socials and have subscribed to the DeepSense and STEM Connector newsletters. And also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, both us, DeepSense and Shiftkeys, to keep up with events that are happening around the HRM during the summer.